It's great to see you on this Tenacious Tuesday. We'll be reading or continuing on with a reading of Awaken the Giant Within. This is a book by Tony Robbins about how to take immediate control of your mental, emotional, physical, and financial destiny. Absolutely amazing read. And what I absolutely love about this book is that it's about you. It's about me. It's about the person who's reading the book. And I find this an amazing quality in the writing of a book like this, of a motivational, inspirational, whatever you want to, whatever topic you want to use. I know those words are played out: motivation, inspiration, self-growth, self-help, personal development. I know a lot of those words are played out and some people don't like to use it. But at the end of the day, how do you write a book? There's a big question here: is how do you write a book that is about the person reading the book? Not just about the accomplishments of the writer, not just a bunch of, there's a lot of books today that end up being a lot of stories about, this person, Benjamin Franklin, did this, and this person made $1 million doing this, or this is the power habit of whoever, of this celebrity, or this athlete does this. So a lot of books tend to take that route into inspiring people. They use a bunch of stories from a bunch of people, but they don't really dive in. They don't really connect with the reader. And what I find that this book has done so well is this idea of how do you write a book that is for the reader, that is like you're talking or speaking to the reader directly as if they were right in front of you. And I just want to say that Awaken the Giant Within is one of those books that does such a great job of that. At the end of the day, this book isn't about, it's about Tony Robbins, but at the core of it, it's not about Tony Robbins. It's not about the motivational technology. It's not about the inspiration. It's not about all the incredible stories that are in it. It's about you, what you want to achieve, what your goals in life are, what your motivations are, and what you feel or believe your limitations are, and how you can overcome those limitations, those self-imposed limitations, to get you closer to the things that you desire, simply by taking control, immediate control of your mental, emotional, physical, and financial destiny. So that's some powerful stuff right there, and we're going to go ahead and dive into this book. On the previous chapter we were just reading, it was about this idea of submodalities, this idea that you can take control of the mental images and sounds that you constantly have, which is so powerful, because when you realize our thoughts are a combination of our emotions, our feelings, our past experiences, or what we envision the future to be like, and it comes in a form of images. We might imagine a moment in the future, or we might hear somebody talking to us in a voice that we don't like, such as our boss or a relative that we're not really fond of. And we start to hear those things, and when you can take control of those ideas, those thoughts in our head before they start to get to us, then you've got a lot of power there. And it can help you take immediate control over your emotions in that very moment. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and continue reading. Where we left off was, right here. So let's start with this concept of change your states and you change your life. You can now change your state in so many ways, and they're all so simple. You can change your physiology immediately just by changing your breathing. You can change your focus by deciding what to focus on, or the order of things you focus on, or how you do it. You can change your submodalities If you've been consistently focusing on the worst that could happen, there's no excuse for continuing to do that. Start now to focus on the best. The key in life is to have so many ways to direct your life that it becomes an art. The challenge for most people is that they have only a few ways to change their state. They overeat, overdrink, oversleep, overshop, smoke, or take a drug. None of which empower us, and all of which can have disastrous and tragic consequences. I just want to circle this right here. The key in life is to have so many ways to direct your life that it becomes an art. That your life becomes an art. How do you direct your life in a way that becomes an art? That's a powerful question right there. The biggest problem is that many of these consequences are cumulative. So we don't even notice the danger until it's too late. That's what happened to Elvis Presley. And that, unfortunately, is also what's happening every day to so many other people. Picture an unfortunate frog in a kettle being slowly simmered to death. If he had been dropped into a fully boiling pot, the shock of the heat would have caused him to jump back out immediately. But with the heat slowly building, he never notices. He's in danger until it's too late to get out. The journey toward Niagara Falls begins when you don't control your states. Because if you don't control your states, you won't be able to control your behavior. If there are things you need to accomplish but you can't get motivated, realize you're not in the appropriate state. That's not an excuse, though. That's a command. It's a command to do whatever it takes to change your state, whether it's changing your physiology or your focus. At one time, I put myself in a state of being pressured to write my book. No wonder I felt it was impossible. But then I had to find a way to change my state. Otherwise, you wouldn't be reading this today. I had to be in a state of creativity, a state of excitement. If you want to go on a diet, it's not going to work if you're in a fearful state, or a worried state, or a frustrated state. You've got to be in a determined state in order to succeed. Or if you want to perform better on your job, realize that intelligence is often a factor of state. People who supposedly have limited capability will find their talent shooting through the roof if they get into a new state. I've demonstrated this many times with dyslexic people. While dyslexia is a function of our visual faculties, it's also a function of our mental and emotional states. People who are dyslexic do not reverse letters or words every time they read something. They may do it most of the time, but they don't do it all the time. The difference between when they're able to read clearly and when they reverse letters all comes down to state. If you change their state, you immediately change their performance. Anyone who's dyslexic or has any other state-based challenge can use these strategies to turn themselves around. Since movement can instantly change how we feel, it makes sense for us to create lots of ways to change our state with one singular movement in an instant. One of the things that most powerfully changed my life was something I first learned years ago. In Canada, I found a man who was breaking wood karate style. Instead of spending 1.5 to 2 years to learn to do it with no martial arts training, I simply found out what he was focusing on, the brightness and so on in his head, what his beliefs were, and what his physical strategy was, how he specifically used his body to break the wood. I practiced over and over his physical movements identically with tremendous emotional intensity, sending my brain deep sensations of certainty, and all the while my instructor coached me on my movements. Bam! I broke through 1 piece of wood, then 2 pieces, then 3 pieces, then 4. What had I done to accomplish this? I raised my standards and made breaking the wood a must, something I previously would have accepted as a limitation. 2. I changed my limiting belief about my ability to do this by changing my emotional state into one of certainty. And 3, I modeled an effective strategy for producing the result. This act transformed my sense of power and certainty through my whole body. I began to use the same wood-breaking sense of certainty to accomplish other things I never thought I could do, breaking through my procrastination and some of my fears easily. Over the years, I continued to use and reinforce these sensations, and I began to teach them to others, even children, 11 and 12-year-old girls, showing them how to increase their self-esteem by giving them an experience they didn't think was possible. I eventually started using this as part of my video-based unlimited power seminars conducted by my franchisees, our personal development consultants around the world. Often in 30 minutes or less, they were able to help their participants to overcome their fears and learn how to break through anything that stops them in their lives. After the sense of certainty, after breaking the wood, they learn to use this experience to give themselves the sense of certainty that is necessary in pursuing anything they want to achieve in life. It's always fascinating to see a huge man who thinks he can do it with just brute force get up there and miss, and then watch a woman half his size and muscular tone break through in a heartbeat because she's developed certainty in her physiology. Quote, "Experience is not what happens to a man, it is what a man does with what happens to him." Oh, good one. That's a great quote right there. Aldous Huxley. I don't remember what he wrote. I think Aldous Huxley wrote a very famous Brave New World, I think. Aldous Huxley. I've never read it, but that's a great quote right there. Experience is not what happens to a man, it is what a man does with what happens to him. So there's a question. What has happened to you, and what did you do with it? What is something that you built an experience from? Something that happened to you and you had to do something with it. That could be a lot of things. I mean, I know that sounds so generic and very simple, but something powerful there to be said. You've got to realize that you must take conscious control of running your own mind. You've got to do it deliberately. Otherwise, you're going to be at the mercy of whatever happens around you. The first skill you must master is to be able to change your state instantly, no matter what the environment, no matter how scared or frustrated you are. This is one of the foundational skills people develop in my seminars. They learn how to quickly change their state from being afraid and knowing they can't do something to knowing they can do it and being able to take effective action. Developing experiences like this in which you change quickly gives you tremendous power in your life. Something you can't fully appreciate until you really try it for yourself. The second skill is that you should be able to change state consistently in any environment. Maybe in an environment that used to make you uncomfortable, but in which you can now change your state time and again, conditioning yourself until you feel good no matter where you are. The third skill, of course, is to establish a set of habitual patterns of using your physiology and focus so that you consistently feel good without any conscious effort whatsoever. My definition of success is to live your life in a way that causes you to feel tons of pleasure with very little pain. That's a good definition of success. I think there's another definition by Earl Nightingale, the famous radio broadcaster who discussed a lot of like personal growth seminars. I think his definition of success is something like, success is the gradual realization of a final vision or an ideal vision of an ideal way that you want to live your life, a full realization, a gradual realization. So it's an ongoing. So the quote was powerful in the sense that it's more like an ongoing process. Back to the book. And because of your lifestyle have the people around you feel a lot more pleasure than they do pain. Wouldn't that be nice, right? The way you live, the way you go about life, how you feel about everything, your beliefs, your systems, isn't just about you, but it's also a way that the people around you also feel a lot more pleasure to just simply being around you. Wouldn't that be nice? Someone who's achieved a lot but is living in emotional pain all the time, or is surrounded by people in pain all the time, isn't truly successful. The fourth goal is to enable others to change their state instantly. The fourth goal is to enable others to change their state. The fourth goal is to enable others to change their state instantly, to change their state in any environment, and to change their state for their whole life. This is what my franchisees learn to be able to do in their seminars and in their one-on-one work with people. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that sounds great. I didn't even know he had franchisees. I wonder if that business is still going. That's a good question. I haven't really heard of his franchisees. I've heard of his coaches. But I can't say I know of a franchisee there. Because this was published in 1991, I think. So his business was pretty different probably back then. And I also know that there's a lot of personal development, growth, motivational coaches. They had a business model where they used franchisees, but at the end of the day, at this point, they've given up on that format. But anyway, so what do you need to remember from this chapter? This is a very good point to remember. All that you really want in life is to change how you feel. Again, all your emotions are nothing but biochemical storms in your brain. And you are in control of them at any moment in time. You can feel ecstasy right now. Or you can feel pain or depression or overwhelmed. It's all up to you. You don't need drugs or anything else to do it. There are much more effective ways, and as you learned in the chapter on beliefs, drugs can be overpowered by the chemicals you create in your own body. By changing your focus and the way you're using your physiology, these chemicals are much more powerful than virtually any outside substance. Every great and commanding moment in the annals of the world is the triumph of some enthusiasm. Ralph Waldo Emerson. A lot of great I think there's actually only been like 3, but great Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. Every great and commanding moments in the annals of the world throughout history, every amazing, incredible, worthwhile moment is the triumph comes from enthusiasm towards some endeavor. I think that's powerful. Do you know how to make yourself feel good? On a business trip to Toronto, I felt physically stressed because of intense back pain. As the plane descended, I began to think about what I needed to do when I got to my hotel. It would already be 10:30 p.m. and I had to be up early the next morning to conduct my seminar. I could eat something after all. I'd had nothing all day, but it was awfully late. I could do my paperwork and watch the news. In that moment, I realized all of these actions were merely strategies for getting out of pain and into some level of pleasure. Yet none of them were all that compelling. I needed to expand my list of ways to experience pleasure regardless of the time or place. So, do you know how to make yourself feel good? This sounds like a stupid question, doesn't it? But really, do you have a set of specific and empowering ways to make yourself feel good at a moment's notice? Can you accomplish this without the use of food, alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, or other addictive sources? I'm sure you have a few. But let's expand the list. Right now, let's identify some of the positive choices you already have for making yourself feel good. Sit down right now and write down a list of things that you currently do to change how you feel. As long as you're making a list, why not add some new things you may not have tried before that could possibly change your state as well? Don't stop until you have a minimum of 15 ways to instantly feel good, and the ideal would be at least 25. This is an exercise you may want to come back to again until you have hundreds of ways. When I made a list myself, I realized that playing music was one of the most powerful ways I could change my state quickly. Reading was another way to feel good because it changed my focus, and I love to learn. Especially reading something instructional and informational, something I can immediately apply to my life. Changing my body movements is something I can do instantly to break out of a limiting state and into a resourceful one, exercising on my Stairmaster, with the music cranking, full tilt, jumping up and down on my rebounder unit, running 5 miles uphill, swimming laps. Here are some others: dancing, singing along with my favorite CDs, watching a comedy film, going to a concert, listening to informational audio tapes, taking a jacuzzi, a warm bath, making love with my wife, having a family dinner where we all sit down at the table and chat about what's most important to us, hugging and kissing my children, hugging and kissing Becky, taking Becky to a movie like Ghost where we sit in our seats in puddles of tears, creating a new idea, a new company, a new concept, refining or improving anything that I'm currently doing, creating anything, telling jokes to friends, doing anything that makes me feel like I'm contributing, conducting any of my seminars, especially huge ones, one of my favorite submodalities, polishing up my memories, vividly remembering a wonderful experience I've had recently or in the past within my journal. So right now, those were just Tony Robbins examples, but right now is a great time to list ways to change how you feel, to go from pain to pleasure. And there's actually a list right here, right now with you. And yeah, so I'm gonna do this list of 20 things that help me go from a pain to pleasure. So if you're just tuning in, thank you for jumping in. You're jumping at an interesting time because I'm about to jump into an exercise that would probably be very helpful, which you can do as well, and ultimately we'd probably be brainstorming together. But I just went over an example. Tony Robbins just listed like 25 examples, probably more than 25, of things that help him change how he feels. Because at the end of the day, the power of this exercise is to know all of the ways that you can instantly, right now, today, at this very moment, go and change the way you feel from something potentially negative to something positive. And ultimately, this is a list that I'm about to write and share some ideas with you. But take this as a moment to start brainstorming. The goal is to hit 25. He says, aim for 15, but the idea would be 25. So I'll go ahead and do this. List of ways to change how I feel to go from pain to pleasure and to feel good immediately. So this might be an unusual one, but I like to shower. Showering, I do sometimes when I'm feeling down on myself. I might take like 4 showers a day, depending on the day. I know that might sound weird, but showers are very relieving to me. They're meditative. Let's see, what else? Going to the beach. Going to the beach. I love going to the beach. I mean, they say that the beach is a super powerful place to be. And they say some of the happiest moments you can have, just scientifically studied, is by going onto like a mountaintop, or like going to somewhere like Malibu where the sun's shining and just overlooking the ocean. It creates a lot of peace. Going on a day trip. Going on a day trip with my lady. So I love taking these day trips and just taking a drive and just going to like a nearby town, just getting out of town and just doing it for a day. It doesn't even need to be for a whole week, but it gives me the opportunity to really do these types of things often. Let's see, going to the gym for sure. And feel free to share some of yours as well. I'd be glad to hear them. But let's see, how would you change the way you feel to go from pain to pleasure? And include things that are positive, right? That you feel are good for you. So let's see, reading, definitely. I know Tony Robbins said this, but reading makes me feel good. if I ever feel down, if I ever feel lost, if I ever feel like I need ideas, if I ever feel like I'm, not doing what I could or should be doing, I go to read a book. Let's see, reading, shower, exercise, gym. The gym has constantly been there for me after quarantine, after COVID. During COVID was probably the longest period of time in my life where I haven't had a gym membership, and where I didn't have a gym membership. Probably like a course of like 3 to 4 months before they started opening up gyms out in Southern California, and my body just constantly did not feel right. I was so confused. I was lost. I didn't feel depressed, but just something didn't feel right with my body. And after those 3 or 4 months, I had watched a video online, and I was like, what's going on? And a friend of mine popped up, and they were working in the gym, and I'm like, that's it. I have not been exercising the way I was before quarantine. So that was like a wake-up call, and I got to the gym, and I know that for sure that simply being in a gym and getting your body moving has helped me through many challenges. It helps me relax, helps me get into a good state. And if I don't have it, there's this uncertain thing, just like it's like a habit, a habitual feeling of feeling good in the gym, and when it's missing, you can feel like you've lost something. So definitely the gym. Today, I want to say running. I know running makes me feel good, but I don't necessarily. I don't know. I'm still like trying to convince myself that running is a great thing, and I do that by forcing myself to do it. But I'm slowly enjoying it. So what else? And you can't say eating cake. That's not a good one. Let's see. Texting a friend. I like to text friends nowadays. Just, random to check up, see how they're doing. Text friends. I like to have a chat with my parents. Just chat with my parents. Make videos. If I ever feel down, make videos. On the days that I feel down, I've had some down periods, and I wanted to make a change. It can be hard to make a video when you're feeling down, but at the end of the day, I know that I have the ability to literally, I have to change in that moment for the sake of the video, for the sake of making YouTube videos, Twitch streams, things like that. And it's easy to just say, hey, well, I'm not feeling good today, so I can slack. And some people might be able to, and depending on what your goals are, you can. But for me, I actually enjoy making videos. They make me happy, and it might be a narrative video, or it might just be a talking video, or whatever. But it feels great. So what are some other ways to go from pain to pleasure? Meditation. Although sometimes I feel like meditation is just me procrastinating, but definitely it's helpful, right? We don't want to judge our good ideas. Wow. All right, so this list is starting to get hard. How about for you? How's this list going for you? Do you have 5, maybe 10 things specific to you that make you feel good, that help you go from a situation of pain to pleasure? And not something that that you might use to procrastinate on your goals, but something that gets you into a positive state. Playing video games is a good one, although I'm iffy on this one. I know it's funny coming from a Twitch streamer, because video games can be a form of escapism, procrastination. But on one hand, yes, it can be those things, but on the other, if you've ever been into gaming, which I'm sure you have, it is definitely a great way to relieve stress and help achieve pleasure. So with that said, On number 12, what else can we do? Signing. This is a new one for me, but signing up for shiny objects. I'm gonna say signing up for shiny objects. So as I got into running, I noticed that you can reward yourself by doing races, and they give you medals at like races. So you could run like 3 miles and get a medal at the end, plus food and all these great things, and it's exciting for me. I It's a way to really reward yourself, give yourself a pat on the back for doing something challenging. Now, I've for most of my life, I've been more like, okay, well, I shouldn't need these objects. I need to be self-motivated. I shouldn't need these objects to help motivate me. But at some level, it's a way of taking. I've found it to be, a way of motivating myself. If I need to do that, if I need to pursue these shiny objects in order to motivate myself, then I'm gonna do it until at some point I decide that I'm totally self-motivated and I can do it regardless. So with that said, we're on number 13. I hope you've got at least 5 or maybe some new ideas or something as well. But what else makes me feel good? Cooking a nice meal. Cooking a nice meal. Cooking a nice meal. Now, I might not necessarily do that for fun on a regular basis just to feel good, but it's fun when you can put something on the stove and it comes out in a positive way, doesn't it? Like, you take a bunch of ingredients, you put them together into a pot, you stir them, you let it boil, you add some other flavors, and it just feels good. And let's see what else. Number 14, petting my cat. Picking up my cat. Picking up our cats, I should say. They're actually my lady's cats. Picking up our cat. I have this chubby cat that I've adopted through my lady, and he's a chubby cat. He's paralyzed. His name is Simba, and he's a chubby cat. He's not paralyzed. He's got like paralyzed paw. And it's so fun to just like, because he's fat and he's like on the ground. I just want to pick him up and just like squeeze him, like most people like to do with their pets. But that gives me a lot of pleasure, actually. That's a very fun thing. I like hugging friends. Hugging friends is nice, right? Like hugs are powerful. Hugging friends, family. Even if you find a willing random person, hugs are nice. So with that said, I'm on number 16 now. What else gets me going? Meeting new people. I love to meet new people. Sometimes, I've worked in many careers, meeting new people, striking up random convo. So I'm on number 16 now, meeting new people and striking up random conversation. I find that so fun. I've had most of my jobs throughout life have always been working with people, interacting with people. I started working as like a busboy at restaurants, a host when I was 14, and working in retail, and I worked at a Subway. I worked, I do Uber. I've worked as an actor. I work as an actor too. I've done sales, and through all of these jobs, I'm not saying every interaction is absolutely enjoyable, right? Like if you work in retail or you work in food service or whatever, you can meet a lot of people who are at their worst, and it can ruin your day. But what I find is that the very fun interactions are very much worth it. You can learn a lot in those environments. So I definitely love, striking up random conversations with people. Let's see, number 17, day trips. Do I want to say travel? Practicing a new skill. Let's say practicing a new skill. I might even call this micro adjustments, because there's this thing that I like to do, and there's a concept called like the 1%, improving yourself 1% every day. And you might not notice this, but in these videos that I do, I love the idea of practicing just something every single time. And something I've been working on personally is enunciation, pronouncing the words that I speak better as I'm reading. I mean, this has been literally just me, you know, learning to read better, as silly as that sounds. But enunciation is very helpful. And, you know, it's something like this, practicing a new skill, drawing, digital art, running, a new exercise, all of these things definitely help change the way I feel. To go from pain to pleasure. I got to try a new skill. Let's see. What else? I just had something on my mind. Practicing new skill. Actually, I'm going to do practicing a new skill. And because I'm running out of ideas, I'm going to add on 18, learning a new hobby. Learning a new hobby is totally fun. And it's one of those things though where, you know, you want to like master something such as art or surfing or playing pool or whatever that is, and there's an important, you know, element of mastering, you know, not just dabbling in every single thing you do. But I love, you know, getting my hands into new things, to work my hands in different ways, because I think it's important to constantly create new mental challenges, new wirings, new connections in your mind, in your head, in your brain, whether it be drawing, which creates a whole new mental connection between your hands and your mind and how you observe things. It could be a sport like snowboarding. I recently went snowboarding for my first time. So learning a new hobby, this could be anything. It might even be playing a new video game, or it might be learning a new exercise. All these things, I just love this idea that if I can get my hands to do something physically, get my body to do something, that I'm making new connections in my head. And practicing a new skill. I said practicing an old skill, but I'm going to also say practicing a new / former skill. What else gets me? I love... Okay, so watching a great movie. I love watching a great movie. And I already said I love making videos, or let's see, making videos, almost any type of video, just doing things on camera and things like that. So, you know, I'm nearing number 20 through 25 right now, and I hope you're almost there too, and that you've got at least 10, so that when we continue on in this chapter, as this chapter continues, he's going to start adding more ideas that you're going to have the opportunity to, you know, add that. So feel free to share, ask questions, or discuss some of these things. And number 20, let's see, learning a new skill or hobby. Sitting down for dinner. I feel like that's too easy because he's already said that. So sitting down for dinner. I love the work that I do, which would be, you know, acting. Love for acting. And, you know, sometimes you have to go find those opportunities, but whether it's being in a class, whether it's actually performing or working in Hollywood as a background actor, or even a stand-in, or being in your own project and producing it. I mean, all of that is absolutely exciting because you really get to explore the different pieces of yourself as well as humanity. I know that sounds super cheesy, but when you get to pursue like a passion like that, or even a hobby, if you want to call it that for yourself or whatever. And I'm very grateful and fortunate to have the opportunity to do these things. Um, Being in environments where you get to act, where you get to play, where you get to enjoy the idea of exploring a different ways of living and things like that. It's very exciting, and I guess love for acting and being on a Hollywood set. Let's just say a film slash TV set, 'cause it doesn't necessarily have to be Hollywood. And I think I hope everyone has an opportunity to do something like that. With that said, number 21 through 25, we've got 5 more, and let's see what else. This part is getting harder. And it's also becoming harder because I don't want to use things that are like procrastination, such as watching puppy videos, which I enjoy, but at some level I think that watching puppy videos is just me avoiding things that I must do. So let's see. Ideation. There's this exercise I learned, ideation, right here. Ideation. I know that sounds like a silly one. Like, who just sits down and just comes up with ideas? But I learned this exercise from a great book called Choose Yourself by James Altucher. And in that book, he talks a lot about this concept of becoming an idea machine and how you do that. And this is a way that he used to overcome many of his life's greatest challenges, is coming up with 10 ideas per day. And supposedly he's been doing that for like decades now. And I like jump in and out of doing 10 ideas per day, but it is very helpful, especially during challenging times, if you can just like think of ideas. And they don't have to be good ideas, they don't have to be brilliant ideas. They could be absolutely terrible, ridiculous ideas that you never show to another human being and you burn it or whatever. But it's a great exercise. It helps get me creative, and it helps me realize, me personally, it might change for anybody else, but it helps me realize the things that I must do, that I have to do, and it also gets me thinking about the things that I'm avoiding to do. So it gets me into action. With that said, number 22, I've got to really think about this at this point. Ideation. I love the ideation exercises. I like enjoy playing with my cats, hugging, picking up my cats. Yeah, they're awesome. Let's see. Having a brain fart now. If you've got something, feel free to share some ideas, as I'm stuck right now. But did I already put meditation? I did put meditation. See, this is when it comes down to a time when you need to realize that you need more ways to feel good. Not necessarily you, but I'm talking about myself here, but what are some more ways? Challenging myself. Here you go. I like to challenge myself. That's an interesting one. Challenging myself to run more, to hit a certain mileage, to run the LA Marathon, to do something new at the gym, to push myself to do exercises that I don't like. Those are ways to challenge myself. To get myself to make videos even when I don't want to challenge myself to hit new goals at work or in my job, to challenge myself to speak better and whatnot, to make better meals, to cook better, all of those things. 23, what makes me feel good? Tipping, that's a weird one. Tipping people makes me feel good. when I at a restaurant or whatever, yeah, tipping people makes me feel good. It always, makes me feel like I'm giving back. I don't always like the people that I tip, and I know at some level some people are probably thinking when I say that, well, don't tip them if they suck. But sometimes I think, well, like back in my day, I used to work, and you can have a bad day, you can have a mistake, and sometimes a tip can really brighten someone's day or whatever. But I do enjoy tipping. It feels good. It feels like I'm giving back to someone for the work that they've done for me. I enjoy collaborative work, collaborating with people. People on video projects plus video projects and beyond. It's so fun, and I already said video, but I guess I'm just adding to it right now. But this idea of having bringing a bunch of people together. When you're able to bring like a few people together and say, hey, let's make a movie, let's make a film, let's make a video, let's come up with an idea that we want to do, or I have this idea, are you interested? That's the really fun part to me in making some of the content, such as short films that I've made. And then once you get together, like, it can be stressful, but it's just so rewarding at the end. And I've got one more. What is it? I want to say, trying out a new restaurant just seems so easy to me. Swimming laps. I'm trying to take ideas from what Tony Robbins is saying. Changing his body movements. Jumping up and down. Yeah, that's totally helpful. Creating anything. Telling jokes to friends. Doing anything that makes me feel like I'm contributing. Polishing up memories. I really want to do ones that he has not done. I already said this, but making day trips, seeing a new town. Interviewing people for my podcast. There's so many things, but learning about other people, I enjoy that. But that comes from meeting new people, striking up random conversations, learning about other people. What else? I've already got so many, and I just keep adding. Some of them I feel like are extensions, so it's becoming harder. Learning a new idea. Learning a new concept. Yeah, let's go with that so that we can move on from this exercise and learning a new idea. Absolutely love finding if I could just find one gem of wisdom, I'm a very happy guy. One good quote, like the other day I was on set with a very big name, or not the other day, it was actually a couple weeks ago, but a little while ago I was on set with a really successful actor. And if I mentioned who it was, I just don't want to say his name in this video because he doesn't know. But he taught me a lesson on negotiation. And there was a moment where it was him and a group of people, the director and another co-star, and they were talking about like, oh, how should the scene go? They were collaborating. They had it envisioned one way, but some of the things didn't work out. So they were trying to negotiate, or they were talking through, collaborating on how the new way of filming the scene could be done. And at some point he went, well, you know what, I can, and this is not verbatim, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of, well, I can do lunch at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. He might have said, well, we can do lunch at 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. or whatever, or combination of those words, and, or, I, we, whatever it was. But it just sounded so powerful because it was so collaborative. It was like, we can do it this way and that way. We've got the resources. You've got great ideas. I've got great ideas. There's no reason that we can't find a perfect ground that we can both stand on and feel like we've both won, right? And given that the situation was one where there wasn't necessary, it didn't have to be a zero-sum game, and this was obviously already a collaborative environment, so it might not work if one side feels like they're taking from the other, or one side feels like they're losing like a significant ground. But this was definitely one of those situations where I just heard that and I was like, that is what probably why this charming and charismatic Hollywood celebrity is as successful as he is. But with that said, I learned a new idea, and I was so excited to hear that. Anyway, finally we get to move on in this book, and I hope you've written down at least 10. If you haven't, I'm going to continue, since you can't pause this video, or if you can, pause the video and go on. But this was definitely a powerful exercise. Just knowing all of the ways that, not only all the ways I can get out of pain and go into pleasure, but all of the ways I've been doing it, and brainstorming all of the new ways I can do it. So with that said, if you don't have a plan for pleasure, you will have pain. The whole key here is to create a huge list of ways to make yourself feel good so you don't need to turn to those other ways that are destructive. If you link pain to the destructive habits and more pleasure to these new empowering ones, you'll find that the most of them are accessible most of the time. Make this list a reality. Develop a plan for pleasure for each and every day. Don't just randomly hope that pleasure will somehow show up. Set yourself up for ecstasy. Make room for it. What we're talking about, again, is conditioning your nervous system, your body and your mental focus, so that it searches constantly to see how everything in your life benefits you. Just remember that if you continue to have a limiting emotional pattern, it's because you are using your body in a habitual way, or are continuing to focus in a certain disempowering way. If it's your focus that needs to be shifted, there's one incredible tool that can change it instantly. You must know that questions are the answer. And with that, we will take a pause or wrap on this video for today as we finish up that section. Actually, you know what? I don't want to finish up on that chapter. I really like this idea of questions are the answer. I want to at least go through this bottom section right here, because that's really powerful. Chapter 8, questions are the answer. And with that said, so let's actually continue. Questions are the answer. This sounds like a good place to keep reading rather than a stopping point. Questions are the answer. He who asks questions cannot avoid the answers. Cameroon proverb. They needed no reason. And this is about to get very, very dark and serious. So if you're not prepared for it, because I'm reading it right now, I'm looking through it, just be prepared. I don't know if this would cause any, negative emotion or whatever, but they needed no reason. They came simply because he was of Jewish descent. The Nazis stormed into his home, arresting him and his entire family. Soon they were herded like cattle, packed into a train, and then sent to a death camp in Krakow. His most disturbing nightmares could never have prepared him for seeing his family shot before his very eyes. How could he live through the horror of seeing his child's clothing on another because his son was now dead as the result of a shower? Somehow he continued. One day he looked at the nightmare around him and confronted an inescapable truth. If he stayed there even one more day, he would surely die. He made a decision that he must escape, and that escape must happen immediately. He knew not how, he simply knew he must. For weeks, he'd asked the other prisoners, How can we escape this horrible place? The answers he received seemed always to be the same. Don't be a fool, they said. There is no escape. Asking such questions will only torture your soul. Just work hard and pray you survive. But he couldn't accept this. He wouldn't accept it. He became obsessed with escape, and even when his answers didn't make any sense, he kept asking over and over again, how can I do it? There must be a way. How can I get out of here alive today? It is said that if you ask, you shall receive, and for some reason on this day, he got his answer. Perhaps it was the intensity with which he asked his question, or maybe it was his sense of certainty that now is the time, or possibly it was just the impact of continually focusing on the answer to one burning question. For whatever reason, the giant power of the human mind and spirit awakened in this man. The answer came to him through an unlikely source. The sickening smell of decaying human flesh. There, only a few feet from his work, he saw a huge pile of bodies that had been shoveled into the back of a truck. Men, women, and children who had been gassed. The gold fillings had been pulled from their teeth. Everything that they owned, any jewelry, even their clothing, had been taken instead of asking. Instead of asking, how could the Nazis be so despicable, so destructive? How could God make something so evil? Why has God done this to me? Stanislavski Lech asked a different question. He asked, how can I use this to escape? And instantly he got his answer. As the end of the day neared and the work party headed back into the barracks, Lech ducked behind the truck. In a heartbeat, he ripped off his clothes and dove naked into the pile of bodies while no one was looking. He pretended that he was dead, remaining totally still, even though later he was crushed as more and more bodies were heaped on top of him. The fetid smell of rotting flesh, the rigid remains of the dead surrounded him everywhere. He waited and waited, hoping that no one would notice the one living body in that pile of death, hoping that sooner or later the truck would drive off. Finally, he heard the sound of the engine starting. He felt the truck shudder, and in that moment he felt a stirring of hope as he lay among the dead. Eventually, he felt the truck lurch to a stop, and then it dumped its ghastly cargo. Dozens of the dead and one man pretending to be one of them, in a giant open grave outside the camp. Lech remained there for hours until nightfall. When he finally felt certain no one was there, he extracted himself from the mountain of cadavers and he ran naked 25 miles to freedom. What was the difference between Stanislavski Lech and I don't actually know how to pronounce that word, but Lech, and so many others who perished in the concentration camps? While, of course, there were many factors, one critical difference was that he asked a different question. He asked persistently, he asked with expectation of receiving an answer, and his brain came up with a solution that saved his life. The questions he asked himself that day in Krakow caused him to make split-second decisions that led to actions that significantly impacted his destiny. But before he could get the answer, make the decisions, and take those actions, he had to ask himself the right questions. Throughout this book, you've learned how our beliefs affect our decisions, our actions, the direction of our lives, and therefore our ultimate destiny. But all these influences are a product of thinking, of the way your brain has evaluated and created meaning throughout your entire life. So, to get to the bottom of how we create our reality on a daily basis, we need to answer the question, just how do we think? Holy crap, so I was definitely not expecting that. Before diving into this chapter. But it's quite powerful. There's this other book that is actually mentioned in this book. It's called Man's Search for Meaning, written by Viktor E. Frankl, and he was another Nazi camp survivor. And I had the opportunity to read that book, and it's one of those things where if someone is able to maintain a mentality that helps them escape some of the most horrid conditions. I mean, most people would, just they can't even. I don't even know how to start thinking my way through that situation. It's so terrible, and there's no way to intellectually, think of, oh well, how would I do this, right? But I think that's what makes it all the more powerful, to have those experiences and have their stories of how do you overcome some of the most difficult situations that the most terrible situations that you could possibly happen. And it's an interesting way to consider the questions that you want answers to. So we'll go through one more section, and then we'll be done here. We might even jump into another room. So with that said, our questions determine our thoughts. One day I was thinking about important events in my own life and in the lives of people I had encountered along the way. I had met so many people, fortunate and unfortunate, successful and unsuccessful. I really wanted to know what allowed successful people to achieve great things, while others with similar or better backgrounds disappeared over the falls of Niagara. So I asked myself, what really makes the biggest difference in my life, in who I become, in who I am as a person, and in where I am going? The answer I came up with was one I've already shared with you. It's not the events that shape my life that determine how I feel and act, but rather it's the way I interpret and evaluate my life experiences. The meaning I attach to an event will determine the decisions I make, the actions I take, and therefore my ultimate destiny. But I asked myself, how do I go about evaluating? What exactly is an evaluation? I thought. Well, right now I'm evaluating, aren't I? I'm trying to evaluate how to describe what an evaluation is. What am I doing right now? And then I realized I had just been asking myself a series of questions. And obviously, those questions were, how do I go about evaluating? What exactly is an evaluation? Right now I'm evaluating, aren't I? What am I doing right now? Then I thought, is it possible that evaluations are nothing but questions? And I started laughing and thought, well, isn't that a question? I began to realize that thinking itself is nothing but the process of asking and answering questions. If after reading this, you're thinking that's true or that's not true, you had to ask yourself, either consciously or unconsciously, a question. And that question was, is this true? Or even if you thought, I need to think about that. What you're really saying is, I need to ask myself some questions about that. I need to consider that for a moment. As you consider it, you'll begin to question it. We need to realize that most of what we do day in and day out is ask and answer questions. So if we want to change the quality of our lives, we should change our habitual questions. These questions direct our focus and therefore how we think and how we feel. The masters of question asking, of course, are kids. How many millions of questions do they constantly bombard us with as they're growing up? Why do you think that is? Is it just to drive us crazy? We need to realize that they're constantly making evaluations as to what things mean and what they should do. They're starting to create neural associations that will guide their futures. They're learning machines, and the way they learn to think, to make new connections, is initiated by questions. Either questions we ask of ourselves or others. This entire book and my life's work is the result of my asking questions about what makes us all do what we do and how we can produce change more quickly and easily than it has been done before. Questions are the primary way that we learn virtually anything. In fact, the entire Socratic method, a way of teaching that dates back to the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, is based upon the teacher doing nothing but asking questions, directing the students' focus, and getting them to come up with their own answers. That's great, because there was a powerful quote earlier that said something along the lines of, "The Fletcher whittles and straightens their arrow, while the master guides them." So how does a master guide someone? Ultimately by asking questions. And you see this through great mentors and teachers. Well, how do you think is the best way to do this? Or what made you say that? Or how can we do this in a better way? Those questions are so powerful. Questions are so powerful in general. Good questions are life-changing. When I realized the incredible power of questions to shape our thoughts and literally our every response to our experiences, I went on a quest for questions. I began to notice how often questions appeared in our culture. Games like Trivial Pursuit, Jeopardy, and Scruples were all the rage. The Book of Questions, an entire book of nothing but questions to make you think about your life and your values. Wow, okay, that seems like a good book to read. I want to read that. The Book of Questions. Ads on TV and in print asked, what becomes a legend most? How do you spell relief? Is it soup yet? Spike Lee asks Michael Jordan, is it the shoes in a TV ad for Nike's Air Jordan basketball shoes? I not only wanted to know what questions we were asking as a society, but I also wanted to discover the questions that made a difference in people's lives. I asked people in my seminars, in airplanes, in meetings. I asked everyone I met, from CEOs in high-rises to homeless people on the street, trying to discover the questions that created their experience of day-to-day life. I realized that the main difference between the people who seemed to be successful in any area and those who weren't was that successful people asked better questions. And as a result, they got better answers. They got answers that empowered them to know exactly what to do in any situation to produce the results they desired. Quality questions create a quality life. Holy moly. My goodness, this entire chapter is going off with such a bang. So many great discussions and conversations. Like I'm going to bookmark this chapter alone because it's so helpful. The power of a question is so powerful. When we really think about it too, like the truth in this, like what do CEOs hire consultants and such for? What are CEOs hiring consultants for? A good consultant is going to ask the right questions to help narrow down the problems so they can help come up with the best solution. And at some level, some consultants are supposed to maybe know a little bit about the problem so that they could give the best answer, but to understand a problem so that you can come up with a top tier result requires that you ask the right questions. Quality questions create a quality life. You need to burn this idea into your brain because it's as important as anything else you'll learn in this book. Businesses succeed, quality questions, quality life. Businesses succeed when those who make the decisions that control their destiny ask the right questions about markets or strategies or product lines. Relationships flourish when people ask the right questions about where potential conflicts exist and how to support each other instead of tearing each other down. Politicians win elections when the questions they raise, whether explicitly or implicitly, provide answers that work for them and their community. When the automobile was in its infancy, hundreds of people tinkered with building them, but Henry Ford asked, how can I mass produce it? Millions chafed under communism, but Lech Walesa asked, how can I raise the standard of living for all working men and women? Questions set off a processional effect that has an impact beyond our imagination. Questioning our limitations is what tears down the walls in life, in business, in relationships, between countries. I believe all human progress is preceded by new questions. Definitely have to reread this chapter again, but we're gonna wrap here and continue on another day for Wisdom Wednesday tomorrow. But the power of questions, we're just going to summarize, finish this with this section and read this quote. Power of questions. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? George Bernard Shaw, classic quote, why not? The power of an important question, all captured in 2 sentences. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? So powerful question. Such a powerful 2-sentence quote. And just to wrap this up, a question to you. What is a question you can ask yourself right now that can help you overcome a situation that you're looking to work towards? Or, I feel like that was way too broad, and it doesn't really help narrow things down, So I'm going to toss a few questions at you that might be helpful. What are you working towards right now? What's stopping you from achieving it? And ultimately, what is something that you need to overcome that? Or it could be someone, it could be a skill, it could be a license, a certification, it could be a personal growth thing. So what is it that you need to overcome that? And what is something that you can do right now in this moment after watching this video as it ends? What is something that you can do right now that can help you move closer toward that destination? It could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be the action itself. It could be something as simple as writing a letter, making a call, sending a text, sending an email, doing some research, looking for a sale, whatever that is. Maybe you want to travel, right? It doesn't have to be like some professional endeavor. It could be a lifestyle endeavor. And finally, just to wrap it up with George Bernard Shaw's quotes, what is something that you're saying why to, right? What are you seeing as it is that you're saying why to? Why does it have to be like, why is this happening? Why am I in this situation? Why is things not going my way, right? So what is something that you're saying why to? Just to be aware of those things, that like how you're using your questions. And then what is something that you could say why not to, that you want, that you desire, that you want to achieve, that you want to have, that you want to be? What is something that you're dreaming of, that you're imagining, that you're hoping for, expecting, or wishing for? What is one of those things? And then how do you say why not? Can you say why not? Are you able to say, hey, why not? Why can't I have this? Why can't I do this? Why can't I be that? Why can't I have all these things? And I think you'll probably come up with answers, right? Your mind's going to be like, well, there's logically, I live in one place right now and I can't afford to move to another, or logically, I need these skills for this job and I don't have these other skills, or logically, I'm in a relationship and it's very hard to get out of, or logically, my boss is a tyrant and I'm stuck here, or you could probably come up with reasons for why not, but you really got to ask yourself the real why not. What is the real why not? So hope that was helpful. Just a bunch of powerful questions just thrown at you in succession without really knowing what you're working on. But you keep that as a personal ambition for yourself. And with that, thanks for watching, and we'll be continuing this video in tomorrow. So stay tuned. See you then. And great to be able to do this with you.